Hi, I'm Joseph Noor. I'm a medical doctor and a biochemist, and I'm the author of Document X, Direct Evidence of God's Existence. Now we're going to look at the miracles of Moses. Now Prophet Moses, there's two popular miracles associated with him. That is of the sticks turning into snakes and the one of the splitting over the sea. So we look at the first one about the sticks and snakes. What features prominently here is that of snakes. And the reason being that snakes played a crucial role in Egyptian culture and religion. You find snakes were symbolized as God. They offered protection. Now, when the Quran draws lessons from ancient cultures, it frequently employs their style of language to facilitate the argument to make things simple. The Quran takes up the story in chapter 20, verse 18, 19, and 20, where God is engaged with Moses. Now, I'm going to paraphrase here. So God asked Moses, "What is in thine hand, O Moses?" And Moses replied, "It's my rod. I beat the leaves with it, I lean on it, and I have many uses for it." Now God instructs Moses to cast down the rod, and lo, it was a snake active in motion. Then he instructs Moses to draw his hand close to his bosom, and it will come out white and shiny. Now if you look at these verses, you'll find that these events didn't actually happen in reality. Now I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to give you the reason why I make this statement. That it was in a vision that Moses saw these things. And this is an accepted means of communication between God and his prophets through a vision. Now let us analyze the verses first. Why the description of the rod of Moses? Is to show us that this was an ordinary rod. It didn't have any magical qualities. Then there's the transformation of the stick turning into a snake. You find it in chapter 20, verse 50. When Pharaoh asked Moses, "Who is your God?" Moses replied, "My God is he who gives unto everything that exists its true nature." So in other words, the nature of a thing is determined by God and is fixed. We've learned that the nature of a thing, the way a thing behaves, it's an expression of the divine will. It's how God's activity is manifested in nature. It's a decisive principle. Now, if this stick, which was a lifeless wooden object, transformed into a complex reptilian creature, it would contradict these verses. So that shows you that could not have happened. And this is confirmed in another verse in 27:10, when God gave Moses the same instruction to cast down the rod, and then he answered, it behaved as if it was a snake. So this shows you that it wasn't really a snake, but it appeared to be a snake. Now, what is the meaning of this stick turning into a snake? If you look at these verses, it's the comparison of the argument of Moses and Pharaoh. Believed he was God himself, and he believed in the plurality of gods. This is a lifeless argument without foundation, and this is represented by the lifeless stick. Moses' argument, on the other hand, was deadly and as swift as a snake. Moses' argument was a living argument about the living God. Now, what does this mean by drawing his hand close to his bosom? Now, this is a common symbolic expression which conveys the idea of comfort. Moses obviously was apprehensive and anxious when he was to confront Pharaoh, who was the leader of a great empire. Now God consoles Moses that he would teach Moses the arguments, how to confront Pharaoh and how to deal with Pharaoh's arguments. And this would replace that initial fear and apprehension of Moses with a sense of calm and peace. And this is meant by the phrase, drawing his hand close to his bosom. And the hand coming out white and shiny simply means that Moses' arguments would outshine those of Pharaoh's. Now, if you continue in the same chapter, you find that this confirms the interpretation which I've just laid out to you, where Moses asked God to expand his breast for him. In other words, to expand his knowledge, to make his task easy for him, to loosen the knot from his tongue so he could express himself eloquently and clearly to Pharaoh, and to send his brother with him to make up for his shortcomings. Moses didn't refer back to the stick turning into a snake and the coloration of the head because he understood the symbolic meaning about this. Now let us look at how the Quran approaches debates. In chapter 10 verse 82, it is stated that Allah says there that He will establish the truth by His words. His words is of course the Quran. And in 21:18 it says there that He holds the truth against falsehood, and lo, it knocks out its brains, and falsehood is bound to perish by nature. So Allah's argument strikes at the very root of misleading arguments, causing cracks in the foundation of that argument. Then in chapter 3 verse 184 it is said that the prophets came with nothing but clear arguments. And we look at these arguments in a moment. So the prophets weren't magicians who were sent to perform supernatural tricks. They were taught the arguments formulated by God. What are these arguments? We learn that in 41:43 it said, "Nothing is said to thee, O Muhammad, that was not said to the prophets before thee." So all the prophets basically came with the same arguments. These arguments would be the law of causation, for example. The stars, the planets, the galaxies, everything have a finite existence. They must have had a creator. So in other words, their finite existence implies a designer. Then there's the nature of the things, the burning quality of fire, the flowing of water at a specific temperature, the nature of the gold atom. It is God that determines the nature of these things. Then there's the unity of design, harmony and order of the universe, which point to a single transcendental mind ruling the universe. Moses must have also stated the argument in 21:22, where God speaks about other gods. Once you have other gods, you have these gods opposing each other, and they would cause chaos and disorder. And this verse revolts against the plurality of gods, which Pharaoh believed in, the theme of unity that runs through the universe. Again, Pharaoh believed in many gods, and these verses struck at the root of Pharaoh's beliefs. Then there was the moral argument. Though Pharaoh persecuted and oppressed the Israelites, would he expect the same treatment? Would he be satisfied with a similar type of treatment? And then he must have directed Pharaoh to the concrete facts of history, that those civilizations that defied the moral order were eventually destroyed. So Moses used these arguments, and Pharaoh had no answer to these arguments. Pharaoh also had the delusional belief that he was God himself. Moses must have told him that he's God. Moses is God, is not born, does not die, is not dependent on sustenance, does not age. Pharaoh had none of these unique qualities. So realizing that Moses' argument was gaining the upper hand, and Pharaoh's henchman was leaning towards Moses, there was a desperate attempt from Pharaoh, which is summed up in the following verse 28:36, where it says, "When Moses came to Pharaoh with our clear arguments, Pharaoh said, 'This is nothing but sorcery fabricated by you, Moses. Never did we hear anything like this from our forefathers.'" During that time, it was common practice. If you could turn away a person from the Egyptian cult, you would be called a sorcerer. This sorcery that Pharaoh accused Moses of wasn't magic and trickery. These were legitimate practices of the Egyptian cult and religion. It was the arguments of Moses based on reason and logic that was foreign to the Egyptian culture and religion that Pharaoh categorized as sorcery. Now listen to Pharaoh's reply or his reaction. He says, "Never did we hear anything like this from our forefathers." He didn't say never did we see anything like our forefathers. This shows you it was a debate. It wasn't a visual display, a stage show of snakes cannibalizing snakes. And this is made clear in another verse 7:117, where it says, when they cast down their rods, that Moses' rod or Moses' snake swallowed up their deception, which means it neutralized their arguments. What is the message for us here? What benefit can we derive from the story of Pharaoh and Moses? It doesn't matter who your opponent is, whether he is a leader of a great country, whether he is a professor, whether he is a scholar. No, studying the Quran teaches you the ability how to debate with anybody. It provides you with the intellectual tools, how to engage in conversation and provide convincing evidence to your opponent. And this is the message. I just want to end off by saying that if henchmen of Pharaoh could turn their sticks into snakes, it would mean that they have actually defied the laws of Allah. So that idea of a stick turning into a snake, as is commonly believed in tradition, is entirely imaginary.